The mysterious city of Machu Picchu is no longer occupied. It's been empty for nearly half a millennium.
Machu Picchu, located at the center of this once expansive empire, is one of the few well-preserved remnants of the Inca civilization.
Buried in secret beneath Machu Picchu is something that was never supposed to be found. Not overlooked by accident, deliberately concealed beneath the terraces, beneath the temples, beneath the most photographed ruins on the planet for 500 years. Between 2023 and 2025, scientific discoveries began pulling it into the light. And what surfaced did not just surprise the researchers who found it, it shook every foundational assumption archaeology had built around this place for generations.
The stone city of Machu Picchu is one of the most fascinating archaeological sites on the planet.
The site the entire world thought it understood turned out to be something entirely different. Something far older in its secrets, far larger in its scope, and far more dangerous in its implications than anyone was prepared for. Because the moment those findings went public, the Peruvian government made a move that makes no sense. Unless what is buried beneath Machu Picchu is worth far more kept hidden than understood. This is what they found, and this is what happened next. What changes everything? For months, Dr. Lucy Salazar and geneticist Dr. Richard Berger had been running a project that was supposed to be routine. 34 individuals, carefully placed burials found in deliberate locations throughout the citadel over multiple centuries, were selected for DNA extraction and sequencing, not scattered rubble bones. Intentional burials, positioned throughout Machu Picchu with clear purpose, waiting to be read. The study had one goal: confirm what scholars had believed for generations, that Machu Picchu was a royal estate for the Inca Emperor Pachacuti, a cloud retreat for the most powerful man in South America.
When the Spanish conquistadors invaded the Inca Empire in 1532, they only had a tiny army of 130 infantry and 40 cavalry.
A vacation palace in the sky. The data had other plans. The DNA profiles of those 34 individuals did not align with standard Inca highland populations. Not even close. The genetic diversity was staggering. People from completely different ethnic backgrounds, different regions, different linguistic groups, all interred, together in one place. Some carried markers from coastal populations hundreds of miles to the west. Others traced to groups far to the north. Berger later said the findings were unlike anything their team had anticipated. The picture forming on their screens looked nothing like a royal retreat. This was something far more complex, far more deliberate, and far more buried than anyone had imagined. Here is the catch. Salazar kept scrolling, and then she found the 6 women. 6 female remains among the burials carried DNA tracing not to the Andes Mountains, but to the Amazon rainforest. Lowland jungle people found at 2,440 meters altitude, in the clouds, at a site supposedly reserved for Inca royalty. Picture what that journey actually means.
Built around the mid-15th century, Machu Picchu is a stunning example of the Incas' engineering feats.
The Amazon basin and Machu Picchu are separated by some of the most punishing geography on this planet. Dense, sweltering jungle at near sea level, then vertical cloud forest passes barely wider than your shoulders, then freezing. Altitudes where the air thins until your lungs burn. Temperature drops 40 degrees in a single day. Terrain shifts from mud to ice to exposed rock face. Modern hikers with satellite phones still die on routes like these. And somehow, 500 years ago, these women made that journey, or were made to make it. One pair stopped Salazar cold, a mother and daughter buried near each other. When the team analyzed the isotopes locked in their bones, the chemistry told 2 completely different life stories. The mother's bones carried one dietary and geographic signature, the daughter's carried another. Different diets, different water sources, different worlds. 2 women connected by blood, separated by geography, and then reunited in death at 2,440 meters in a citadel nobody had seriously questioned. Until now. Salazar sat with those results for a long time before she wrote a single word. This was not random migration. This was orchestrated. These women were transported, hundreds of miles through some of the most hostile terrain on Earth, deliberately, purposefully, because someone decided they needed to be here. Someone with the authority to move people across an entire empire like pieces on a board. The question nobody in the Peruvian government wanted to touch was brutally simple. Why? Why bring Amazonian women to a mountain fortress in the sky? What role did they play? And what does their presence tell us about what Machu Picchu actually was? If you are tracking what this discovery actually means, subscribe to Stellar Insights. I cover the finds the textbooks skip every week. Because what came next made the DNA look like a prologue. While Salazar and Berger were still reconstructing lives from bones in New Haven, someone else was already scanning from the sky. And what they found proved that what is buried beneath Machu Picchu is not a footnote. It is the whole story. What the lasers found. In 2024, Araya Caramanica and a team of at-sea remote sensing specialists flew LiDAR-equipped drones over sections of Machu Picchu that no tourist has ever set foot on. Dense forested slopes surrounding the famous terraces and temples, areas officially classified for decades as untouched natural wilderness. Nothing to see here, just jungle. Caramanica watched the screen as the LiDAR stripped the vegetation away, layer by layer, firing millions of laser pulses at the ground and building a three-dimensional map of everything beneath: soil, shallow rock, centuries of accumulated jungle floor. It sees what human eyes cannot. And then the shapes started appearing. 12 structures, 12 previously unknown buildings and platforms buried beneath centuries of growth, none of them on any map, any survey, any archaeological record in 500 years of exploration. Some showed the unmistakable geometry of ceremonial platforms. Others appeared residential, possibly administrative. The exact function matters less than one. Fact, they were there. They had always been there. And for half a millennium, nobody knew.
Machu Picchu's purpose is still a mystery to many archaeologists. Some theorize that it may have served as a ceremonial site, a military stronghold, or a retreat for nobility.
And get this, the areas where these structures were found are restricted zones. Tourists cannot go there. Most researchers cannot either. These are sections controlled by the Peruvian government, sealed for decades. Nobody has publicly explained why those zones were off limits in the first place, or why scanning them was never a priority across all those years of study. 12 buildings, hidden for 5 centuries, found in weeks, in areas the Peruvian government had kept locked, while, as we would soon discover, quietly reviving plans to funnel 8 million tourists per year through this same valley. And if 12 structures were hiding just outside the known boundaries, how many more were sitting in the surrounding valleys? Were we looking at a single citadel, or the visible center of something vastly bigger? Hold that question, because the next discovery did not answer it. It made it worse. The Impossible X. In 2025, Dr. Rualdo Menegat at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil was analyzing satellite imagery when he noticed something in the geological data beneath Machu Picchu that made him rerun his models 3 times before he allowed himself to believe it. 2 major fault lines, each stretching approximately 175 kilometers, crossed directly beneath the citadel. Not near it, not close to it, directly under it, forming a near-perfect X. And the intersection point sits almost exactly where the main temple complex stands. Fault lines mean one thing to most people: instability, earthquakes, collapse. But when Menegat and his team ran over 1,000 computer simulations across every conceivable earthquake magnitude and direction, the results shattered every assumption they walked in with. Every single simulation produced the same outcome. The intersection of those 2 fault lines is extraordinarily stable. The opposing tectonic forces cancel each other out, creating a geological sweet spot where the ground barely moves even during significant seismic events. Let me say that differently. The Inca built their most sacred site on the single most earthquake-resistant point in the entire region, a point that required orbiting satellites and supercomputers to identify in the 21st century. And they found it in the 15th century, without instruments, without written mathematics we can document, without any technology we can explain. Cusco itself has been devastated by earthquakes multiple times throughout history. Entire colonial districts leveled, churches collapsed, thousands killed. Machu Picchu still stands. 500 years. No significant structural damage from seismic activity. Ever. Either the Inca got impossibly, miraculously lucky, or they knew something about what was buried beneath their feet that we are only now beginning to catch up to. But here is what nobody tells you. When Menegat published, Lima said nothing. No response, no acknowledgement. A scientist had just proved that the Inca located the single most seismically stable point in the entire Andean region. Without instruments, 500 years before the technology existed to confirm it, and the Peruvian government looked away. The same silence the DNA findings received. The same silence that would meet every discovery that followed. That pattern is going to matter more than anything else in this story. Because what Menegat found underground connected directly to something engineers had been quietly documenting for years. A buried reality so vast, it rewrites the entire premise of what Machu Picchu is. The city beneath the city. The spa. Here is something that has not fully landed for most people, and I need it to land right now. What tourists photograph, the terraces, the temples, the iconic postcard views, represents roughly 40% of the actual engineering at Machu Picchu. Maybe less. 60% of the site exists underground. More than half of one of the most famous archaeological sites on this planet is invisible, buried beneath your feet when you stand at that viewpoint taking the picture everyone takes. When excavation teams dug nearly 3 meters beneath the visible terraces, they found an elaborate subterranean infrastructure, drainage systems, foundation networks, retaining walls, water channels carved from stone. An entire hidden city of engineering beneath the one the whole world thinks it knows. And get this, the terraces tourists admire are not simply agricultural platforms. They are the visible tips of a massive integrated system that manages water flow, prevents erosion, and stabilizes the mountain itself against the very earthquakes those fault lines should theoretically be producing. Strip away the postcard, and you find layer after layer of buried precision. The drainage network alone would impress modern civil engineers. Water entering at the highest point is channeled through stone-lined conduits, redistributed across dozens of terraces, filtered through carefully graded gravel layers, and expelled at the base of the mountain in controlled streams. Zero pooling, zero erosion, zero structural failure. 500 years. Through monsoon seasons, earthquakes, and centuries of abandonment after the Inca Empire collapsed, built without iron tools, without wheels, without mortar. And it still functions right now.
The Inca constructed Machu Picchu's palaces, temples, terraces, and infrastructure using stone, and without the help of wheels or tools made of steel or iron.
Ancient Inca drainage managing rainfall on a Peruvian mountain more efficiently than most modern cities manage their stormwater. Engineers who have studied it say it rivals anything built in the last century. Some say it surpasses it. But here is the deal. The precision did not stop underground. At the highest point of the citadel stands a carved granite pillar called the Intihuatana. The name means roughly the place where the sun is tied. For decades, archaeologists cataloged it as ceremonial decoration, a ritual object, something to photograph and move past. Then researchers measured it precisely using GPS satellite alignment, and what they found changed the conversation entirely. The Intihuatana is oriented within 3 degrees of true geographic north. Not magnetic north, which wanders and shifts across the centuries, but true north, the actual rotational axis of the planet. It functions as a solar calendar, marking solstices and equinoxes to within 15 minutes of accuracy. Year after year, century after century. No adjustment, no recalibration, no maintenance of any kind. Astronomical precision encoded in a single piece of granite, matching the standards used today for modern satellite calibration. Carved 500 years ago at 2,440 meters with hand tools by people who supposedly had no telescopes, no precision instruments, and no advanced mathematics we can document. And yet it works. It has never stopped working, not through 5 centuries of monsoons, earthquakes, and the complete collapse of the civilization that built it. That is not luck. That is knowledge, the kind of knowledge that does not come from guessing. None of this was supposed to be found. All of it was buried in secret beneath a mountain the whole world thought it understood. And now, just as scientists have begun mapping how deep those secrets go, someone is moving to bury them again. this time permanently, under concrete and 8 million pairs of tourist shoes per year. That is where this story turns, and the speed of what happened next is the part that should concern you most. 3 weeks from protection. January 2026. Peru's Ministry of Culture approves a master plan for Machu Picchu's protection, conservation guidelines, visitor management, preservation goals extending through 2046, 20 years of careful stewardship. On paper, exactly what every scientist had been demanding. 3 weeks later, February 2026, Peru greenlights the Chinchero International Airport, 3 weeks from protected to flooded. This had been building in the background for years, even as LIDAR was scanning restricted zones. Even as Menegat was publishing the Geological X, the Peruvian government was quietly reviving an airport project declared dead 15 years earlier. Corruption investigations tied to Brazilian construction, giant Odebrecht, had frozen the contracts. Billions vanished in bribes across 12 countries. Presidents fell, officials went to prison. The Chinchero airport was buried in that wreckage. But in early 2026, it did not simply return. It was fast-tracked. Target operational date, late 2027. 18 months from approval to planes landing. Projected capacity, 8 million visitors per year, roughly 200% above current levels, funneled through a valley already failing on infrastructure, water supply, and waste management. And the runway is being built directly on top of 600-year-old Inca agricultural terraces in Chinchero. Not ruins and rubble, functioning terraces, 6 centuries old and still working today. The irrigation flows, the drainage performs, the structural engineering holds without a single repair in living memory. The same engineering tradition that built the underground systems buried beneath Machu Picchu itself. But here is the detail that should stop you cold. The capacity study, the official report determining whether this region can sustainably handle 8 million visitors, is not due until September 2026, 7 months after the airport was already approved. They approved the airport before the study that determines whether the airport should exist. The report will almost certainly confirm what every independent assessment has already concluded. The Sacred Valley cannot support that volume. Water systems, roads, waste management, archaeological preservation. None of it scales, and the airport will open anyway. Because the decision was made before the data existed. 8 million tourists per year generates revenue at every level. Airlines, hotels, transport, concessions, taxes. That money does not flow to archaeologists. It does not fund excavation. It flows to the same networks that have controlled Peruvian infrastructure contracts for decades. Follow the money. It always tells you who benefits. It always tells you who decides. The scientists have not been quiet. Dr. Salazar, researchers from Cambridge, Japanese archaeological institutions, all have published formal warnings stating the same conclusion. The foot traffic, ground vibration, moisture load, and construction associated with mass tourism at this scale pose direct, measurable threats to the underground infrastructure that has survived 500 years intact. Peru's response has been what it always is when the data gets inconvenient. Silence, no rebuttals, no counter-arguments, no engagement with a single data point. Just silence and a construction timeline. One side has peer-reviewed research, DNA evidence, LIDAR mapping, geological modeling, and 5 centuries of structural proof. The other side has revenue projections and a runway blueprint. And once the Chinchero terraces are paved over, the living laboratory for understanding how Machu Picchu's buried systems were originally engineered disappears permanently. What they do not want. Studied here is where we are. Scientists spent 5 years peeling back what Machu Picchu really is. Not a vacation palace for an emperor, not a ceremonial retreat. A deliberately engineered nerve center of empire, genetically diverse, geologically perfect, built on a buried X that required satellites to find, 60% concealed underground, aligned to the stars within 3 degrees. A site so precisely constructed that its plumbing still functions after 5 centuries. And its foundations shrug off earthquakes that have flattened modern cities built, with steel and concrete. After every scan revealed how impossibly complex it is, After every study confirmed how fragile the ecosystem around it has become, after every piece of evidence pointed towards something far more significant than a tourist destination, Peru is racing to open the floodgates, not carefully, not gradually, in 18 months flat. The capacity report arrives September 2026. The airport opens late 2027, but here is the question that will not let go. What if this is not about tourism at all? What if the scans revealed something that certain people do not want carefully, publicly, independently studied? What if what is underground, what is hiding in those restricted zones, what those 12 structures actually contain, is more valuable controlled than understood? What if someone looked at that data and saw not a heritage site, but an asset? I am not saying conspiracy. I am saying the timeline makes no sense unless you factor in what these discoveries threaten. 15 years of nothing. Dead silence. No serious excavation, no comprehensive scan, no coordinated effort to understand what lies buried beneath the surface. Then 5 years of revelations proving the site is orders of magnitude more significant and more fragile than anyone understood. And suddenly, urgently, an airport project that had been dead and buried for a decade and a half has to be finished in 18 months. Right after scientists proved there is far more buried beneath that mountain than anyone had ever realized. Right after the data showed that we have barely scratched the surface of what is down there. Dr. Menegat published the Geological X, Silence from Lima. Karamanica's LiDAR found 12 structures in restricted zones. Silence. Salazar's DNA shattered the royal retreat theory and proved Machu Picchu was a deliberately assembled multi-ethnic hub of imperial power. Silence. And then, 3 weeks after signing a 20-year protection plan, the bulldozers got the green light. September 2026, the capacity report drops. Will it change anything? Or was the decision cemented long ago, in rooms where revenue projections talk louder than 5 centuries of buried proof? Subscribe to Stellar Insights, because this story is accelerating faster than anyone expected, and something tells me we have not seen the worst of it yet. The countdown is on, and Machu Picchu, the impossible city built on the impossible X, with more than half its secrets still buried in the dark beneath a mountain that was never supposed to give them up, is running out of time.